Hey everybody. I wanted to walk you through something that happened yesterday. ChatGPT made an announcement, and in that announcement, they announced something that's called their new Apps SDK. And they've got a few demos that are already up and running. And this is where they're going to have apps run as part of ChatGPT. And where it really heightened my interest was when I realized that what they were describing was actually very similar to what I had been trying to implement with the ham radio help system. And so I went and I chatted with ChatGPT for a little while about it. And I finally wound up here, where it says, well, and I asked it, could I run this through the new SDK, which is probably what I'm going to wind up doing, just to try it out. But it says, yeah, absolutely. You could start an exam here. You run the same backup code, and then you would have an in-chat exam. And it's interesting to me because that's what I had about a month ago. I did it two different ways, and I talked about it in a blog post. I'll put a link below this video. But I did it two different ways. One was I had GPT convert my JavaScript from the website into Python. And then I had the code interpreter inside of a GPT project, which if you have a paid account, I believe I'm saying this right way, you get GPT projects. And it was kind of nice. So I could talk to it, and I said, well, I could say things like start a new test for me. It would start up a new test, give me a problem to work on. Then I could answer, and in the chat I could say, please explain the correct answer to me, and it would. It's actually kind of really cool. Problem I ran into, the reason I didn't run with this was you had to have a paid account to use it. A little bit ironic in what I did finally release on the web, you have to have a paid account with an OpenAI API key to use it. So I didn't really get around that. The other thing here was, even though this is code-based, everything ran a little bit slow. And so if you're curious about how all this works, in this particular project, I had a prompt. It's roughly the same prompt I'm running on the website exam now. I told it had JSON. It did. It's got 13 files I'm going to show you in a second. And I told it what to do when you get a when you get a new test or commands that are their answer or a help command. Then go ahead and run this code. And this code looks nebulous, but it's not. The code is living here in the 13 files. And so there's extra pool.json. Here's all the exam figures. And down here is extraexam.py, and that's the interface that GPT helped me write, that interfaces the code interpreter into my exam code. So that's all there, and that's how that ran. Like I said, the experience was kind of great, but slow. And so then the next thing I wanted to know was, well, could I run it, in a web page? Because that's what I'd hoped to do. And interestingly, about a day later, Simon Willison wrote a blog post where he talked about using canvases from GPT. And the use case that he's doing is essentially to have GPT make you a canvas, and then you can use that canvas other places outside of GPT. Where I wound up with this was something like this. So again, I'm in a project, but instead of converting my code from JavaScript into Python, it turns out that with a canvas in a project, I can just run my code. And so that was kind of cool. I could sit here in GPT, and this is very similar to what they wound up with for their Apps SDK, and that's why I'm kind of looking forward to it. But what I could do here is I could run the exam over here. But the annoying thing was, and this is what they fixed with the Apps SDK, is if I wanted to get help on a problem, I had to copy the problem, at least the ID number, from the app canvas over to GPT, because GPT, while it could write the code for the app canvas, couldn't talk back and forth with it. And so that's why I didn't go with that method. and again, you had to have a paid account to use a project. And so that's where I am now. It appears that what they're going to do, I'm going to try this out, is that the Apps SDK will let me do mostly what I wanted to accomplish here. Now, whether or not that means I'll have to have a paid account, I don't know. But I will find out, and I will keep everybody posted. So I just wanted to take some time, make people aware there is a new Apps SDK, and then kind of mostly leave notes for myself about how I grazed against this, because I remembered that I did. It's been a month. And then where I was and why I stopped and what I wanted to accomplish with it before I go off to start to learn the Apps SDK and how it works with the model context protocol and all that good stuff. Okay, everybody, have a good morning.
Dun 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 dun, Toucan Radio.